Welcome to Wilson Center Now, a production of the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars. I'm John Molesky. Our guest today is Jorge Heine. Jorge is a public policy fellow with the Wilson Center's Latin American program, who previously served as Chile's ambassador to the People's Republic of China. And he joins us today to talk about Taiwan's shrinking diplomatic relationships. Jorge, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
So this reporting came from Japan. A couple of weeks ago, Taiwan has seen its diplomatic ties tumble like dominoes in Africa and Central America as Beijing wields its economic clout to push its One China principle that regards Taiwan as part of China and puts pressure on Taipei for unification. Officials in Taipei are feeling a sense of crisis now that Taiwan has diplomatic relations with only 17 countries.
That's right. Well, of those 17 countries, 4 are in Central America, 4 in the Caribbean, 1 in Africa, 1 in Europe, the Vatican, which some people say may be the next, and 6 are small Pacific islands. So it's really a shrinking pool, and this has accelerated on the course of the past few years. Since 2016, 6 countries have broken with Taiwan and have established diplomatic relations with Beijing, 3 of them in Central America and the Caribbean. So there is a bit of a tide here.
The 6 that have left since 2016, that coincides with President Tsai's time in office. Is that a coincidence, or is that a direct cause?
It is not. Situation is the following. From 2007 to 2017, for 10 years, no countries broke relations with Taiwan, and there's a reason for this. Beijing wasn't interested. They didn't want to make trouble for the KMT-led government in Taiwan. But when President Tsai was elected, and as you know, she comes from a pro-independence party, and she has refused to confirm what is known as the 1992 consensus in relation to the One China policy. Then all bets were off. And the way I read it, this is a bit ironic. It's not so much that Beijing is making a big push. Until 2016, it was a bit the other way around, that Beijing had to push off countries that were keen to establish diplomatic relations with Beijing. But now there's no incentive for Beijing to do that, and therefore this is what we are seeing.
So it's not one size fits all. Different countries are coming to this conclusion for different reasons? Well,
I would say they are all coming to it for one simple reason. China is the second biggest economy in the world. According to some indicators, it's already the biggest one in PPP terms. 10 years from now, it will be the biggest one in nominal terms. Why wouldn't you want to have relations with the biggest economy in the world?
Exactly.
I think asking the question answers itself.
So what are the implications? When you read the literature, there are 2 schools of thought. Some say this is a real existential threat to Taiwan's standing in the world. Others say, so what? Where do you come in on this discussion?
Well, it's obviously not good for Taiwan. On the other hand, Taiwan is a successful country. It has done well. It has a good standard of living for its population, and I'm sure it will overcome these challenges. But in terms of its international standing, it is obviously not helpful.
Can anything be done to reverse the trend?
No, I don't think so. I think what is happening is simply the way things are going to be moving forward. There's another question that some people ask, and I think this also is quite fascinating. China is a country with obviously a very strong historical consciousness, very strong historical memory. I saw this myself because Chile was the first country in South America to establish diplomatic relations with the People's Republic of China in 1970. This was even before President Nixon and Mr. Kissinger went to China. And therefore, Chile has a very special place in China's foreign relations. Now, the question is the following. Who wants to be the last country in Central America, say, or the Caribbean, to establish relations with the People's Republic? Do you want to have that on your record? I think it's a good question.
So the United States and its role in this equation.
Sure.
China keeps reminding the United States of the importance of Taiwan and its global thinking, and there have been provocations in the South China Sea and elsewhere that has created tensions. What is the role of the United States in this equation, if it has a role in Taiwan's diplomatic relations with other countries?
Well, obviously, the United States feels strongly about Taiwan. It has good relations with Taiwan, although at the same time, the United States follows the One China policy, and the United States recognizes the People's Republic of China. It does not recognize diplomatically Taiwan. So that introduces obviously a certain ambivalence in the whole policy of the United States towards this. Now, that said, the United States is not happy with this development. And in the latest case, in the case of El Salvador, the United States warned El Salvador that it shouldn't do this. El Salvador did it anyway. And as a result of that, the United States recalled the 3 heads of mission in Dominican Republic, in Panama, and in El Salvador that had recently undertaken this. This is a very strong signal. Recalling an ambassador signals displeasure. Doing it for 3 countries I had never seen this before. So the United States does not like it. The question is, what can it do about it? My sense is that not much. This is the way things are going. Now, I would say in an effort to see sort of a silver lining in all this, the United States has realized that it is not good enough to tell countries what to do or not to have strong trading or investment relations with China. It must also do something about it, because the question is, well, what do you offer? It's quite clear what China is offering. What is the United States offering? And so, as a result of this, and some people couldn't quite believe it when this happened, the United States has established a new foreign policy initiative and set up something called the United States Development Finance Corporation, with a budget of $60 billion only very recently. It was approved only a few weeks ago. And this is designed to counter China's development aid around the world and make these funds available in terms of either direct loans or guarantees to firms that want to do business in the developing world.
Does this all come down to money? Are there political or ideological considerations or values considerations or anything beyond economics?
Yes, well, I think obviously geopolitics comes into this. There is an element of competition right now between the United States and China. Some people are talking about the possibility of a new Cold War mentality. I think that would be very unfortunate. But there is competition there, there's no doubt about it.
What does an end game look like, Jorge?
Well, an end game, the way I see it, I don't think we're going to see a rush of countries in the next, say, few months abandoning Taiwan. I think this works more sort of drip by drip. But we must...
Is it fair to call it a diplomatic crisis?
I wouldn't call it a diplomatic crisis. I would call it a serious situation. Now, that said...
That sounds like diplomatic doublespeak.
Well, crisis is a loaded word.
Very loaded word.
I would say the following. The other thing that is very important to keep in mind is that Taiwan is a very sensitive issue for the People's Republic of China. And if you combine the present U.S. trade spat, some would call it somewhat charitably, with the situation in Taiwan, it adds fuel to a fire. So I'm a bit concerned because it's a bit of a complex relationship between the two. We have enough trouble with the trade spat to add on top of that pressure on the situation in Taiwan, given the fact that the United States has followed a one China policy.
Well, thank you for bringing it to our attention. A lot of important issues that are flying under the radar in these troubled times, and we appreciate you sharing your insights on this one.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Wilson Center Now. And if you'd like to see future episodes, either of the video version or the podcast version, visit us at wilsoncenter.org, and you can find a full listing of past programs and upcoming programs. Thanks again.